World Disorder asks, many politicians, including Bernie Sanders, support a military option against Iran that could stop them from getting nuclear weapons. If you were president, will you consider a military option against Iran if diplomacy fails? Okay, so the answer to that is yes and no. Yes, I would consider a military option against Iran if they were to ever directly threaten the U.S. and launch against the U.S. That's the yes part of the answer, and that goes for any country. Any country that would directly threaten the U.S. and is about to attack the U.S., we have a right to defend ourselves, and we'll do that, of course. But the answer is also no, because that's not going to happen. There's almost a 0% chance that Iran is going to launch an offensive attack against the U.S. So that's a whole bunch of, American exceptionalist garbage and propaganda that some people in the U.S. have fallen for and believe that, oh my God, they're an inevitable threat to us. They're not, because they don't have a strong military. We have the world's most powerful military that's ever been created in human history. The thought that they would offensively go after us would mean they're on a suicide mission. And you could say a lot about the leadership in Iran, and I do. But they're not on a suicide mission. They're just not. So, no, I would try diplomacy, and I would try negotiations. And then if that fails, again, similar with the North Korea situation, I would do nothing. You want to know why? Because they're not really an offensive threat to us. And even with Israel, they're not really... I know that people, oh my God, but they threaten Israel all the time. Yes, and North Korea threatens us all the time. That's barking. They're barking because their bite can't do dick. They know that Israel is backed by the U.S., and again, the world's most powerful military ever. So these countries, they're not an offensive threat. It's taken a tremendous amount of propaganda from the war machine in the U.S. and from corporate media to try to convince people that somehow these countries are an offensive threat to us when we're the ones that have been invading countries nonstop since the end of World War II. So they're not a threat to us, and I would make clear, wouldn't it be wild if you had a president go in there and just basically extend an olive branch to them? Not even in an Obama middle ground type way, but just say, hey, you know what? Let's work together. How about that? We have a common enemy, ISIS. Let's work together to defeat ISIS. That easy, man. That easy. But instead, we're violating the nuclear deal, then they're violating it in response, and there's an escalation of tensions, and it's all unnecessary. And the idea that they're the number one state sponsor of terror, by the way, is preposterous. Everybody knows that Saudi Arabia, any serious person knows that Saudi Arabia. They're a vile propagandist if they say it's Iran. That's just not true. Iran is Shia. Name the last Shia suicide attack against the U.S. They're all Salafists. Ultra-conservative Sunnis. That's what it is. That's where the terror threat is. That's the jihadist threat. So the answer is yes and no to your question. Yes, a military option's on the table, but only if they're about to attack us, and that's not going to happen. So that's where the no part of the answer comes in. Okay. Goldilocks asks, is there anyone in your circle of friends or family that think your day job is stupid or illegitimate? That's a good question. So the answer is no. Nobody thinks it's stupid or illegitimate. In fact, even people who disagree with my politics think it's like the coolest thing in the world. Like, oh, what? Really? Like you're basically like a talk show host and the stuff goes on YouTube and that works out? And wow, that's amazing. So I've never gotten people saying it's stupid or illegitimate, but there are definitely people who don't agree with me on stuff, and especially at family events, and I'm sure many of you can relate to this. It gets frustrating, man, because, I spend a lot of time doing prep for what we do here, because you have to know certain things to talk about politics, obviously. And oftentimes at family gatherings, you'll have people chime in on political issues, and it's so clear they just have no fucking clue what they're talking about. And that part is frustrating because so they don't think what I'm doing is illegitimate. They don't think it's stupid, but it's like they have no concept of what goes into doing it, and they don't know how ignorant they sound when they start talking about certain issues. That's sometimes the family side of it. The The friend side of it, again, no, they think it's fucking awesome, even though some of the friends don't agree with me politically. They think it's awesome and they think it's liberating because they all have jobs where it's a traditional job where they have a boss and they got to show up from a certain time to a certain time, and they think it's just the height of freedom that I can effectively set my own schedule, and even though it's a lot of work and stuff, it's still, they're like, wow, they look at it like that's incredible that you get to do that. But I do have many friends and family, they don't think it's illegitimate or stupid, but I don't know if any of them watch. I mean, every now and then I'll have somebody in the family, oh, hey, I saw this and this was cool or whatever, talking about a specific segment, but I don't know if any of them watch religiously. In fact, I think none of them do. All right, next. Kyle, this is from Piers. Kyle, I support single payer and Sanders, but do you think that having a single payer system under complete Republican rule is a good idea, given that they have a lot more power to mess with it and destroy it now? Wouldn't they just do everything in their power to make it terrible so that they can sell it as, see, it is awful? That's actually a very good question, Piers, and I'm happy that you asked that, because it never occurred to me to address that, but it's something that should be addressed. So the answer to your question is no, but it's still a good question. But here's the dirty little secret. Nothing can be worse than it is now with our disgusting mishmash private system. Nothing can be worse than it is now. Literally 45,000 people die every year because they don't have access to basic care in the U.S. You could set up the shittiest government-run system possible in the U.S., and it would still have better outcomes and better results and save more money than the system we have now. So again, it's a fantastic question, but the answer is it doesn't even matter how much Republicans try to, undermine it. It would still be more popular than the system we have now, and it'd be better than the system we have now. And what's my evidence of that? It's twofold. The answer is twofold. Number one, the VA. The VA has massive problems. Nobody would deny that. But people, when you poll veterans, they actually love the VA. Even though there's many problems, they go, yeah, still, overall, I think they do a great job. The VA is way more popular than the private health insurance system that we have. I mean, think about that. There's a lot of, scandal, VA doesn't have this, doesn't have that, has this problem and that problem. But even with all the scandals and the underfunding, it's still better than the for-profit private health insurance system. So that's one part of the answer. And again, that's not me speaking, that's the numbers. Look at the polls. People say they like the VA more than people like the private health insurance system. And the bigger answer really is Medicare. Republicans have been trying to take a sledgehammer to Medicare and underfund Medicare as far as the eye can see. But it was crafted in such a way where it's been largely protected to this point. And it is by far and away the most popular health program in the country. 77% approval rating. So we already have some government health care in this country, and they happen to be the most popular and the most successful, even with the Republicans trying to undermine it. So that's a great question that you asked, and I'm happy you asked it, but the answer is undoubtedly no. It doesn't, even if you set up a terrible government-run system, it would still be better than the system we have now, based on the numbers, based on the facts, and based on the polls.